welcome to part two of the Philip Klein interview. Now we're really getting into the music part, but sadly, because of copyright, I cannot play the music that was shown in the episode. So, for each time that we do listen to something that I cannot play, I will put the link to the music in the info box or in the description so you can check it out and then continue listening. Other than that, have fun with the episode. Um, if you do a lot of composing on the on in a DAW, do you which DAW do you use?
I use Cubase.
Cubase. All right. Did you ever do another one, or was it like from the beginning?
No, I started on Logic. Um, I started on Logic, and then when I started working for Harry Gregson Williams, he kind of sat me in front of Cubase and he said, "If you're going to work for me, you need to learn Cubase." Um, which was fine because I actually enjoy Cubase more. So I've been on Cubase now for 15 years almost. Um, so it's very comfortable at this point. And then my orchestration stuff I do in Finale, who just went out of business, so I don't know what I'm going to do there yet. They just shut down the program, so um, I don't know if I'll go to Sibelius or Dorico or whatever it is, um, but yeah, those are the two programs I use the most is Cubase and Finale.
Mhm. And in Cubase, do you have a favorite VST that you oftentimes use, or how how does this work?
I don't know. I use Vienna Ensemble Pro to host everything. I don't know how familiar you are with this stuff, but so I
I
have two computers. Like right here is my DAW, and then this computer that I'm talking to you in is like my secondary computer. So this is where the video goes. So the video sits on this machine. I have Vienna Ensemble Pro on here, it's called. It's made by Vienna Instruments. Um, and it's basically a server for your samples to live on. And so they live on a separate computer. So when I start this computer, it uses an Ethernet connection between the two of them to transfer samples. So my favorite library, I don't know. I probably have, I mean, I have 60 folders on my sample drive right now of different library companies, and probably within each one of those, there's at least 15 libraries. So I gotta have
that's
over 2,000 sample libraries on this machine right now, so it's hard to pick out my favorites. I think there's some really interesting companies like Slate Nash is an amazing VST company. They make really interesting sounding things from an orchestral perspective. I like a lot of orchestral tools stuff. Um, who are German, I'm pretty sure. I think they're in Berlin. Um, but Orchestral Tools has, like all the Berlin Symphony kind of stuff, which is really good. I love my friend George Strezov in Bulgaria does some really good stuff. Strezov samples. His flautist strings are some of my favorite strings that I own. Um, yeah, it's hard. There's some companies that I love. I would that I just think are doing really interesting things. Westwood Instruments, Slate Nash Instruments. I don't know. There's so many. There's so many on here. Noon instruments are really great. I don't know.
all right. So you definitely have a wide
My template is like 900 tracks. That's what my template is. So it's hard to distill it down to a few.
yeah. Wait, wait, what exactly do you mean by a template? Like,
So when I write music, um, rather than like starting a new session and then bringing in the instruments that I need as needed, I have 900 tracks always loaded in my session. So when I start
oh,
writing,
mhm.
so when I start writing, I have everything already loaded. I can start writing right away. I don't have to start, loading samples in, is what I'm saying.
Okay, okay, I understand. Okay, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow. and I see the piano in the background. Um,
This one, yeah. This is
Beautiful.
this is built into the desk. Big screen,
That's,
two screens.
whoa, that's
Then I do writing over in that desk. And then there's the actual piano that I mic'd up here and a dog.
oh, that's sweet.
Okay.
I
But
also have two dogs. It's always great to have a fur ball.
yeah, I know I'm doing well when she's sleeping because she's like, oh yeah, nice music. If I work on an action score, she's scared and hiding under the piano.
Oh, that's sweet. Um, yeah, what I wanted to ask is like you learned the trumpet and then do you probably play the piano too? When did
I
you
can cheat my way on a piano. I can
you can
I am not a pianist by any matter, but I write on a piano a lot. It's how I kind
yeah.
of figure things out. I know enough. I studied piano for like 3 or 4 years, so I can.
Oh, that but I think if you studied it 4 years, then you should not be able to just cheat your way through.
Well, I mean, I just like I went to school at a kind of conservatory place, so I am nowhere near a piano major. So that's where my
Yeah.
brain is. I'm not going to sit down and be able to sight read Chopin. That's just not going to happen. I can do it maybe at half tempo. I can work my way through it, but um, I know enough to write on a piano. That's what I'll say.
Yeah. And also, when you started out, did you or do you still sometimes use your own samples that you create when playing the trumpet? For example, you have a brass
Yeah,
in your scores that you recorded yourself.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I think samples are a great tool, obviously. But I think the more you can do your own stuff, the better it is. Because it's your own, it's not been done before, it's unique, it's interesting, and it's tailored to whatever you wanted. But my general process when I start a new score is the first month or two is just doing like custom, what I call toolkits. So I'll choose like a handful of instruments or whatever, synths or whatever it may be in the studio and through other people that play them. And just try to create like interesting palettes that I can pull from audio.
Mhm.
So like on the Madness, it was a lot of jazz, like sax, trumpet, drums, flute, piano. We did like a prepared piano session. Wish Dragon was enormous. I mean, we spent almost 4 months just doing pre-recordings of like all the Asian instruments, Chinese instruments. Yeah, I mean, I do it on every project. There's always like a custom toolkit created for every project that I kind of sneak in as I'm going. I
Mhm.
find that it also like it'll inspire me in the score. It'll get the juices running as far as like, this is an interesting way to approach the score, if that sound might open up an idea. So
Yeah.
so I have folders upon folders for every project I've worked on as a composer where it's just kind of like the custom stuff that I did.
Mm. All right, great. So basically having a lot of instruments and or sounds can definitely inspire some new things when you don't know how to keep going, right?
Yeah, I think you have to be within reason. I think there's a danger when you do that you go overboard and you have too many sounds.
Mm,
I think some of the best scores examine a very small they examine a small amount of sonic material, but they examine it very uniquely, and I think sometimes if there's too much, it's like there's no focus in the score then, it doesn't feel contained. But yeah, it's to me that's some of the most fun is early on kind of like just figuring out how we can kind of make interesting sounds and I mean then the Madness we had a lot of fun with like the flutes and stuff like that. I think it's just like, you know, it was a cool way to kind of like get my brain into that mode.
All right. After you've composed for the Madness, did you watch the series, or is it
Mm.
just like you made the music, got together with the people, but you didn't actually see the end product then?
No, I mean I went to every mix, so I saw the final playback of every episode for sure.
Mhm.
And then my wife wants to watch it, you know, so so we did watch the whole series. Um, yeah, I tend to always watch because especially if I don't get to go to the mix, sometimes it's interesting to hear, you know, how they mix the music and if it's loud or if it's too soft, if it's too loud, if it's feels good, if they've
So you
muted
have a say in
something.
that too.
Sometimes, not all the time.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, on bigger things, you have a music editor, and a music editor tends to be kind of like your mouthpiece at the mix. But I would say most of the time the composer isn't at the mix. They come in for like the playback at the end and they can kind of say like, oh, you know, maybe the music could be a little less here, a little more there. But on the Madness, um, the showrunner Steve Belber really wanted me to be at every mix, and I was honored to be there because I mean it also was a really cool experience for me because I had never gone to a mix from start to finish like that. So I got to see, you know, the sound guys really working on dialing things in and hear feedback from showrunners like how they're experiencing things um and then, you know, I would offer some thoughts like a lot of times that to be honest, I'm asking them to turn the music down, which I know sounds crazy for a composer to say, but I think when you're working on something that's suspense and thriller, there's a less is more kind of aspect to music that can be you know, kind of more effective than blowing people's hair back. Because I think
Yeah.
if you kind of wait for those moments and say let's really be kind of specific about where we want to let the music really soar in this series, it makes it much more impactful than just like hitting people over the head with the music the whole time. So
Yeah.
it was good, you know. I think the hard part when you're a composer and you work on like a big action movie or sequence or is you often get kind of like knocked way down because there's so much sound effects. Um,
Mhm.
but it didn't happen on this show. They were the mix team was incredible. They were in Toronto. They were really great. So um, yeah, it was fun to be there.
That sounds great. And now that you've worked like on the Madness, Venom, The Last Dance, it's which is incredible. A Quiet Place, they won. Um, Obi-Wan Kenobi series, Turning Red. It's incredible. The Mandalorian. Is it sometimes the case that you get invited to like the premieres where you're on the red carpet or whatever? Is there this kind of recognition that you get invited to these occasions too, or is it just you're the guy in the background that contributes such a big amount to the actual output in the end, but you're just behind the curtains, if you can say that.
I as if you're composing, if you're the composer on a show, you're almost always going to get an invitation to the premiere.
Mhm.
I mean, I've been to my fair share of things that I think I try to always go to every premiere that I write for because I think it's important to celebrate that moment with the directors and the producers and it's just fun. It's fun to get dressed up and, you know, take your significant other with you and show off a little bit, you know. Um, when you're the orchestrator, generally you're not getting invited to those things unless you played like a major role in like the arranging of things. But in general, the orchestrator's pretty below the line. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just think you have to remember that premieres are for there's going to be a lot of people invited, and they're going to always default towards the actors, obviously, all the production team, like the directors, and it tends to be, like the DP, everybody you see early on in the credits is what I
Yeah.
mean. And then
Yeah.
there's like thousands of people that work on a film, and it's just like the theater isn't that big.
Mhm.
So when you're an orchestrator, the composer, it's what we call the crew heads. So the composer is like the head of the music, so he'll get invited. He, she, they get invited, and then it tends to be. It's like not every visual effects artist gets invited. It tends to be the person that oversaw the visual effects department. They get invited. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I will always get invited for kind of the composing side of things.
That sounds so cool to just be around the most like important people, if you can say that, of a show
Important.
like a cast.
Yeah.
But did you make some interesting connections when you were on premieres that where you met an actor or another producer or something like that, where you say, "Oh, this was a very interesting experience"?
Yeah, I remember the premiere for Medieval, meeting a lot of the cast and a lot of the producers on that film, and they become friends. You just become friends with them, and I mean, this business is complicated, and it's hard to navigate, and a lot of it is out of your hands. I mean, you can be best friends with a director or producer, and then they're on a project where they just like they have no control over hiring you. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So you have to I think you have to go into those as a human being, and not as like just as somebody who's trying to create connections. I am first and foremost concerned with like having a relationship with that person because of who they are as a person.
Yeah,
Um, I think if you approach this business purely as transactional all the time, you're going to be really disappointed because
yeah,
it's just like it just doesn't always it's not it doesn't work that way. Like sometimes I tell people it feels like a mini miracle every time you're hired on a project because there are so many micro decisions that happen along the way that to get to the point to where you're actually signing on a line saying you're going to write the score to this film is just like I have no idea how this happened because it can be going like you're going to get hired, and then somebody comes in and says like, "Oh, but I always wanted to give a shot to this person," and then you're done, and that's just how it goes. And I think you have to kind of like honestly like the people that you want to
yeah,
work with. Otherwise, you're going to start to like be really bitter about it. You're going to go, well, come on now. You worked with me on this and this and this. How come I can't work with you on that? And it's just
yeah,
like you have to accept the fact that there is going to be a lot of this that's out of your control, which is why I say, what is in your control is writing the best music you can or whatever, doing the best orchestration you can, doing your best work when you're given that opportunity because you don't know who's going to hear it. You have no idea. I mean,
yeah.
it's just like the Madness was like it's still in the top 10, I think, for Netflix right now, and it's been there for over a month straight, and that's a lot of ears on my music.
3 hours worth of music
Yeah,
is
who would
that's
have never heard
incredible.
it? Which is extremely like terrifying in a way. I'm just like, oh my gosh. But you also have to kind of trust the fact that like you did put your best work that you could in that moment put forward. Of course, there are things I would love to go back and be like, oh, I wish I could have had another shot at that. I think I could have done better. But
Mhm.
but I think like, it that's part of collaboration and like you just like sometimes you just have to kind of put your best foot forward. And I mean, it's incredible. I'm incredibly grateful to be on a project that lives in that kind of like success zone for so long. Um,
Yeah,
with a cast like what it had and with a group of showrunners that I worked with. I mean, they were all just like it was such a good team. They were such good humans and I honestly loved being around them. I mean, the showrunner was over here in my studio and we cooked dinner for him and it was lovely. And it's just like that's what you crave as a human being is that connection. And then the creative part of it is just a natural response from that. Like you want to create the best work you can with this person because you care so deeply about what they're trying to do. And
Yeah,
so to me, that's when the real magic happens. The kind of like going to every mixer to meet people and going in with your business cards and going, oh, this and I mean that's an important part of this business because you're forming a connection with somebody. But if you don't see that through to where you actually take that person out to lunch, get to know them as a human being, understand what they're trying to do with their life and their career and what they want to say, the stories they want to tell. I think you're just it's going to be a pretty hollow life because
yeah,
it's just it's to me it's not fun. I mean, for me, fun is getting to know human beings and getting invested in them and really caring about what I'm doing for them, you know, and if I'm not,
yeah,
you know, getting that in return, it's hard. It's hard. So I think you know, it's like most things. We as human beings crave interaction. It's just sometimes we don't know we do.
yeah, most definitely. Um, my mentor always said to me like, if you interact with someone, you have to go into this interaction with genuine interest in the other person. If it's just like I've met some people who were really focused on what can I do for them and how can I be useful to them. And then they talked to me like for 5 minutes and then they just left. Like they got like I'm at some point where I am maybe not be of use for them because I'm not deep into business. I'm not I have not don't have that much knowledge. And then they just decide, all right, nice to meet you, see you soon. And they just gone and they talk to other people. Um, I I kind of have to say I relate to that because I was thinking like that too. Always when I talk to people, I was thinking, okay, either why are you telling me this? How can this information be of use to me? Or how can you be of use to me? And how can I be of use to you? And if that's not given, then I would not interact. But I really, really love to do this project right now, to have a podcast, to be interested in other people, what they do, and really genuinely become better at interacting and finding out more about other people. So this is definitely a journey where I can have a lot of personal growth. So
Mhm.
I'm very thankful to you as well that you're giving me your time, your expertise, and talk about how what you experienced and how you create your music. So I want to say thank you for that, most definitely.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah. But is it often that people text you or go up to you and talk to you regarding your music, or is it something that doesn't happen too often?
I think the majority of the population doesn't really think about music in in their content.
True.
They think it's interesting when you tell them what you do, and some of them maybe from that point on will pay a little more attention to it. But um, no, I mean, if somebody reaches out, usually it's because they're a director or something, or a producer that's seen something or heard my name from someone,
Mm,
or they're in the business somehow, you know, or a musician. A musician might reach out, and I think like I'm okay with that. I don't need to be known in the zeitgeist of humanity. It's just not something I care about. I really just want to make music and, you know, work on really great stories and in films and I think it's to me we're in a different period of time to where, John Williams existed and the Hans Zimmers existed, that where it's just like everybody knows their name. It's
Yeah,
I think it's hard now because there's so much content. There's so much to consume as humans.
yeah.
Music, media, all that stuff.
It's too much.
Yeah, it's way too much. Humanity has lost the ability to be patient because of it, and it's not going to get any better. I mean, we're constantly just trying to fill the void. So,
Yeah, that's that's so sad actually. And I think more like if you want to make a name for yourself, you kind of have to be an expert at marketing somehow. Like
yeah, yeah.
it's not just about what you do, it's become
Yeah, and that's definitely an Achilles heel for me. I am not good at social media. I just it's not something that matters to me because I just don't care about I don't care about talking about what I've worked on. I don't mind talking about what I've worked on, obviously. It's just that's not why I do it. I do it because I love what I do, and I just it's always been a thing with me, and I see the value in it. It's just that I also have to be kind of like true to who I am as a human being, and that's just not
yeah,
someone who's gonna create content and do all that kind of stuff. I'm just not, it's just not for me. And if that makes my career suffer, then that's just gonna have to be how it is. I just because I can accept that. I've had a very
yeah,
nice life so far, and I've been doing it my own way, and so that's all I can really be asked for and thankful for. So
yeah. That's the most important thing. If you don't want to be have in the center of attention, if you don't want to be the center of attention, that's perfectly fine. I also that resonates with me because I'm also thinking about something that Eminem said because he wanted his music to be wildly famous, if you can
mhm.
say, but not himself. And now everyone knows Eminem, like
Mhm.
the king of rap. But he didn't want that. He wanted to make music and people to enjoy his music and to have the opportunity to make music for movies and not be at the center of attention. That's also something very nice because you can keep your privacy. And I think privacy is the most important thing we have. It's so funny to me how young people, so many think they want to be influencers, they want to be movie stars, they want to be in the spotlight, but they they want the attention. They want that's the point. But I think if you really think about it, you lose your privacy, you lose the ability, let's say, to go out normally and just enjoy your life if you have people running up to you because they're kind of obsessed with you. It's crazy the culture that we also have of um of putting actors on pedestals like the Stranger Things cast. It's incredible how everyone's just fawning over them, and to have your privacy, I think, is a huge privilege. And just do what you love. So I that really resonates with me.
Yeah. Yeah, I know everyone always tells me you're such a private person. I was like, I mean, yeah, I guess. No, I just don't talk very loud, is what I say. Is that famous saying, speak softly and walk with a big stick or something like that. I mean, that's basically it. It's just like I don't really wanna, I don't know. There's just like there's so many people out here that are really kind of like talking themselves up, and it's hard for me
Mhm.
because it's
Yeah.
like it's like you see some people and I'm like, well, I don't know if I really agree with that. and maybe that's not the best way to do something, but that's their thing, it's their journey and that's what they want and that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. Um, I was thinking maybe you also made music for The Mandalorian, and I really really love the show. But I looked up, I tried to search for where you did the orchestration, what piece you orchestrated, but um, I didn't find anything, and so I wanted to know where which part did you which part did you put your work in? Like maybe we could listen into something also, Wish Dragon, where you composed to just get a feel for your music and listen to a piece, and then that you maybe talk about how the creative process came to be.
Yeah, I mean, Mandalorian is they're never going to list the orchestrators for each piece. That's not how it works. Ludwig is the composer and then
Mhm.
we orchestrate as we're assigned to those things. To be fair, I don't even know like where they are in the series. I mean, I can look at them right now on my computer, which cues I worked on for each
Mhm.
episode, but I'm not entirely sure which ones, like if they ended up on the album or not, because if I'm being honest, haven't listened to the album. But I mean, I can help you more on Wish Dragon because I wrote the whole score, so it's
Yeah,
a little
yeah, I'd
easier for
love
me
to
to do
go into
something.
that.
It's a
How
long one.
much time of music did you contribute to Wish Dragon?
I think it was around 86 minutes.
Wow,
Um, it was a lot.
it is. And if you get hired and the organizer says we need music for this scene, or how does this work? Do they come up to you and give you keywords of what you're supposed to compose to what's happening on screen, or do you get a sketch of what's happening, or do you get the finished scene? How does that work?
I mean, it's different for every project. Like early on, generally you get the script.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes they'll ask for music based on the script. I hate that. It's just not, I don't like writing music to an idea. Because my idea of what it'll be might be vastly different than what it actually is. But in general, you have what's called a spotting
Mm.
session. And the spotting session is you going through the film with the director and also a music editor. And it takes all day. You talk through the entire film, um, like every piece of music you talk through in detail of what you need. And then you disappear and your music editor's taken notes from that meeting and you've kind of decided like, oh, right, I'm going to work on this, I'm going to work on that, I'm going to work on this, I'm going to work on that. But there's always a creative discussion early on. Very rarely are you left to your own devices.
Mhm.
I mean, like I said, I think like that's the most important part too, is it's just like getting into the brain of your collaborator and what they're looking for. So
Mhm.
to me, it's important to have that initial discussion. Like, what are you trying to do? Like sonically, has there been any music that's inspired you while you were doing this, and try to get an idea of where their brain is for that. And then you can go off and kind of try to make it your own, and start working and pounding your
Yeah.
head against the keyboard. But um anyway, yeah, this is actually so it's like three-ish cues put together. It's like 5 minutes and change. That's it.
Wow. That was impressive. Wow. And to see this was performed by a live orchestra.
Yeah, this was the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra. So I was in Wellington conducting them right before COVID.
Oh. Yeah, wow. Okay, so that's very incredible how different the sounds are sometimes. Like there's very fast scenes and very sometimes very silent. So I think it probably seems challenging to get right when you have something that's quieter and when you have more loud sections or rhythmic. Um, was this a challenge when composing the piece, or did you have a really, really clear vision, like what's going to happen, and then you composed according to that?
No, I mean there was a vision for sure. I think it's hard anytime you're in an extended sequence, especially in action, to kind of get the balances right. I mean, I think action music, even though it's kind of sometimes sounds the most impressive, is actually easier to pull off because it's more about tempo. If you get the tempo correct against the picture, it feels like it fits and you can get away with doing a lot. The harder parts are kind of when it comes down and you have these moments of like intense emotional, beats in the middle of it. There's like the opening part is bigger, scary, and they're fighting, they're on scaffolding or something, and then there's a part in the middle that comes way down. It's just piano and strings
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And that part it's hard. It's hard to get those right because in those moments, it's like there's always like generally something bad happening in the background. Like the action is still moving in the background, but you're focused in on this sad thing that's happening in front of you. So you have to somewhat
Mm,
keep momentum going in the background while also having emotion in the foreground. Um, so I think it takes a while until you get that. And I mean, I will kind of pull my hair out until I get it right and then send it off and hope for the best. And generally, that's what directors and producers will have the most notes on are the kind of more meaty emotional moments than they do the action moments because like I said, I think a lot of times if the action music is hitting the right beats and it's feeling correct tempo wise, a lot of people will be like, it's great, it's working great, it's pushing the film. But
mm,
it is trickier to kind of find exactly when to push emotion, you know,
mhm.
and stuff like that. So it took a long time. That's a lot of music to write, a lot of
Yeah.
notes to write. Um,
How
but fun,
many
fun to
how,
record.
how many revisions were they? Like I imagine you first sketched it in a DAW and then made it to be played by an orchestra, or what was the
Yeah.
process?
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said, I wrote it all in the DAW and then got it approved with the fake instruments and then orchestrated it.
Mm.
Um, I think I'm sure I do in here the demo of it, um, with the fake orchestra.
For you, it's something you do every day, but like for me, it's incredible.
This is just the first part of it, not the whole
Yeah.
thing. Anyway, you get the idea. I mean,
Yeah.
there's more breath, there's more dynamicism in the real performance. It's actually somewhat I sometimes I think it's harder to hear in action music because there's so much chopping in action music that it's where you really start to hear the differences in like human versus fake is the more emotional stuff because like you're really hearing the air move through the instruments and those things.
Yeah.
The action music's a lot of sound, but I mean, as you can tell in this, there's a lot of other stuff going on in the background that isn't orchestral. There's programming, there's percussion stuff, there's all that stuff we didn't record live. It was all like part of those toolkits that I recorded early on.
Mm.
So A lot of work, a lot of work. Every cue in this movie is very dense, but I had a long time on this film, so it was you could really dig in and do some complex programming and stuff like that. So
Mm. If you you contributed over 60 minutes to this movie, how much work time did that result in?
I worked on this for a year, this film. I worked on it for a year.
Wow.
I mean, not the entire time was writing music, obviously, but
Mm.
I think I spent 3 months probably just doing research on Chinese instruments and Asian instruments, and because I wanted to create something that was pretty cool in the background, which
Yeah,
was fun. I mean, it was there's like this one's got a lot of it's a sh really short thing, but it's very cool, kind of fun like ear candies, you know.
very fun. Yeah. Very jingly and what new instruments did you use for this track that you did your research and which instruments did you use that are uncommon for the Western world, let's say?
These are all like fun things I did on this. So the Shang, which is a lot of cool. Can you hear that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. So,
So it's like a mouth organ. It's they hold it
ah,
looks like a medieval instrument. They hold it up in front of their faces and then they blow into it and they use their fingers to change the it's like it's a bunch of pipes. But so we take like those raw files and then I start these are what I'm talking about, like ear candy. So these are all custom things that we recorded and you
mhm.
know, pads,
Yeah, pads in the background. So amazing.
really beautiful things. I mean, a lot of pads. And then there's,
Yeah.
you know, interesting stuff.
Wow. I oftentimes struggle to find something that's good for ear candy
Yeah.
to just be in the background, but this seems to suit so well that you what you have here.
Yeah. And then so like the gooching, which is you'd know it if you heard it. It's a long it sits like on the ground in front of the person and then you pluck it. It's like a big harp. Um
Mhm.
it's,
Harp for the floor.
yeah. I mean it's on kind of a stand. But like this is a mallet and then with a delay. Things like that. We did like bowing,
Wow.
drones, uh, loops. Yeah, I can't remember which this one's quantized.
That's harsh.
We had a lot of fun with that one. It was interesting to work with it. Um, Pipa, we did some stuff. The Ruan became really, which is basically like a Chinese moon guitar. It's called. Um, anyway, you get the idea. Fun stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Just synth vibes and stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
We do a lot. I do all that for most films, and the instruments all change based on whatever I'm trying to get across, but that's the general idea for that stuff.
Mm. And yeah, so you sometimes use also a synth and digital sounds.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, that sounded so amazing. I'd love to see it in the DAW, but you said it's on the other computer, right? So
Yeah, I can't bring it up in here.
sadly, we can.
It's
Yeah,
to
but
be fair, it was written on like another system too, so it would
oh,
be like a crazy amount of errors when it came up. But
oh yeah. So no need to go through that now. But that's actually amazing. That it makes me really excited to see what you can create and contribute to a movie, really, when you just make the music. It has such a incredible impact. Like the jingle, what you just showed, it's so sweet, so soft to hear, and it makes the listener change mood. Like it's just happy. It's fun, and you really get into the feeling. And when you have the audio supported by something that's happening on screen, then you really get immersed into the story. So I think it's incredible what you do.
yeah, well, thanks. Well, you do it too, don't you?